Hey guys, Megan here, and today I've just been puttering around and I worked a bit this morning and went out to run some errands right now and I work a little more when I get home. But as I was driving home, I I was listening to the Rolling Stones, to one of their songs. Uh, called Wild Horses. I was also listening to the Grateful Dead and some other classics. And it got me thinking how the music from back then was actually good music. And obviously this is a subjective opinion. And every generation says, "Oh, the music of today sucks." But it really does suck, in my opinion. In my opinion, most of the music of today isn't that good. There are exceptions, and there are bands and artists that have really experimented and done some great stuff with their music, like the Shins. Can't think of them right now. The Strokes, Franz Ferdinand, Radiohead. They've done some really good stuff, experimental music, and in my opinion, we don't see that too often in mainstream music anymore. Most of the songs are meant to be earworms so that they can get clipped, so they can get cut and then put in a TikTok video to make a dance move or to create a dance. And back in the 90s, creating dances and creating little trends has always been a thing. But today, I feel like the pop music of today and some rock music of today is meant to be addicting, where the music is catchy and you sing along, but some of the songs that I hear today are just samples of old songs from before. And there are some artists out there, I don't want to call them out, I don't want any haters here, but or hate if you want. It's a free platform to express your opinion. Please do. And some of these artists are using samples from music, from songs from the 40s, from the 30s, from the 50s, from the 60s. Like the introduction of a song, they'll cut that and use it as a sample for their music. And I think back in the day, music, or the songs of back then, are considered classics because if you come to think of it, for example, with rock was a very experimental genre. It did exist before, but the way that it formed in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s was something that people had never seen before. And it makes sense why bands like the Beatles, like the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead is pretty underrated compared to the Beatles and compared to the Rolling Stones. It's more of a niche community that likes the Grateful Dead and all of these other bands that are out there. Lou Reed, right? Jimi Hendrix, among many other. They were all experimenting with their instruments and trying to create new beats that no one had ever heard before. Today, with the exception of a couple of bands and a couple of artists like Radiohead or The Strokes or The Shins and some other bands and artists out there, most of the songs are just samples, and it seems like there isn't anything innovative coming out or being created. And, well, there is. In the EDM world, there are a lot of artists that are creating music that people wouldn't really hear. And this goes with some other things in society, some other issues in society, not just music. Whereas before, if the Beatles released a song or an album such as Magical Mystery Tour, people had never heard music like Magical Mystery Tour. I mean, obviously Jimi Hendrix and other artists and bands were creating similar psychedelic oriented genres or music. But this was all new material for them. And this was like diving into a different world, And so I think a lot of that has been lost, that sense of wonder that people used to have when they would listen to new things or see new things. I mean, we can talk about technology and how we're so advanced and so high tech nowadays that new tech stuff that comes out doesn't impress us because we're just so used to being bombarded with all these innovations. And is that a good thing? I don't know. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I mean, I think there is some good music in the present moment, like that artists have released recently. But for the most part, most of the mainstream, like I said before, is pretty vapid. The music is all about topics that are controversial, and music has always had controversial topics, and most of these counterculture artists created songs that were pretty taboo at the time to talk about. But I feel like, I don't know, it just feels like most of the music today has one or two messages, and it's just fixated on one of those messages, and that's what gets attention nowadays. Whereas before, it was a mixture of different music, was about different things. It was about the government, politics, relationships, and obviously music of today is about that too still. But it was more insightful, is what I have to say. Like the songs, the lyrics were more insightful, in my opinion, or more creative, I should say, more playful. So that's my 2 cents. You may agree, you may disagree. And I hope you have a nice day today. Peace and love.